in a region torn by a decade of unrelenting war, famine, and suffering. A fragile hope emerges from the embers of devastation. Today, we turn our gaze to Yemen, the battleground of one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, and to a turning point that may redefine the course of its future. This is the story of the US Houthi ceasefire in Yemen. For nearly a decade, Yemen has been the epicenter of a brutal conflict, pitting Houthi rebels against a Saudi-led coalition backed by the United States. What began as a civil uprising in 2014 when the Iran-aligned Houthi movement seized the capital, Sana'a, quickly escalated into a full-blown regional war. The result? Tens of thousands dead, millions displaced, infrastructure in ruins, and an entire generation growing up amid famine, disease, and despair. But now, in a rare and cautious alignment of interest, the United States and the Houthi rebels are engaging in something long overdue: dialogue.
Rough and difficult times these last months, and there have been moments the resumption of the civil war has been very close. That said, my mediation efforts and the United Nations approach to Yemen remains relentless and resolute, and the United Nations remains ready and unwavering in our support for a negotiated exit from conflict and for a just and inclusive, sustainable peace. With this said, there have been steps taken in the right direction lately. I consequently welcome the mutual understanding between the United States of America and Ansar Allah on the cessation of hostilities as a positive step for reducing tensions in the Red Sea and in the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Let me take this opportunity to thank the Sultanate of Oman for the important role they played in that regard.
The US Houthi ceasefire, brokered quietly through Oman and with support from the United Nations, represents not just a break in hostilities, but a recalibration of regional power, diplomacy, and strategy. So, what led to this turning point? And can this fragile truce hold? Let's unpack the layers. To understand today's ceasefire, we must rewind the clock. Segment 1: The Road to Ceasefire. By late 2023, the war had reached a strategic stalemate. Saudi Arabia, exhausted by years of inconclusive conflicts and shifting global priorities, began signaling a desire to exit the war. The Houthis, emboldened by military gains in northern Yemen and drone attacks on Saudi oil infrastructure, were increasingly confident. But behind the scenes, other forces were at play. The Biden administration, under mounting pressure to reevaluate its role in the conflict, had already suspended offensive weapon sales to Saudi Arabia and removed the Houthis from the Foreign Terrorist Organization list in early 2021. A controversial move that drew criticism at home, but opened the door for negotiation. The tipping point came in early 2025 when US diplomatic channels, through intermediaries in Muscat and backdoor communications, reached an understanding with Houthi leadership. A mutual recognition emerged. Continued war served neither side's long-term interests. The terms of the ceasefire: a cessation of cross-border drone and missile attacks by the Houthis, and a commitment by the US and its allies to halt airstrikes and unblock humanitarian corridors. Segment 2: Strategic shifts and regional dynamics. This ceasefire does not exist in a vacuum. It is shaped by shifting sands across the Middle East. Iran, the Houthis' primary backer, is engaged in delicate nuclear diplomacy and regional recalibration. Saudi Arabia, under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030, is eager to focus inward, transforming its economy and reducing dependence on oil and conflict. The Abraham Accords, Israel Gulf normalization, and China's growing diplomatic footprint in the region all factor in. The United States, no longer as energy dependent on the Gulf as it once was, is recalibrating its focus toward strategic competition with China and Russia. In this chessboard of interest, Yemen has become less of a battlefield and more of a bargaining chip. Segment 3. Challenges ahead. Yet, and this must be stressed, a ceasefire is not a peace deal. It is a pause, a breath, not a resolution. Yemen remains a deeply fragmented country. The Houthis control much of the north. The Southern Transitional Council holds sway in the south. ISIS and Al-Qaeda still have footholds, and tribal militias, rebel factions, and political grievances simmer beneath the surface. Can the US-Houthi ceasefire be expanded into a national dialogue? Can the parties move from military stalemate to political compromise? And will the Yemeni people, not just foreign powers, be given a seat at the table? Aid agencies warn that without sustained peace, the humanitarian crisis will worsen. Over 20 million Yemenis, 2/3 of the population, still rely on food assistance. Cholera, malnutrition, and displacement are rampant. The ceasefire offers a window, but windows close and history in Yemen has a way of repeating itself. Segment 4. The global stakes. Make no mistakes, the world is watching. Yemen has become a test case for 21st century conflict resolution. Can diplomacy triumph over decades of proxy war? Can superpowers prioritize peace over projection? Can a war-torn nation find its voice amid global indifference? The US Houthi ceasefire may not answer all these questions, but it is perhaps a beginning forged not in optimism, but in exhaustion, not in triumph, but in necessity. And so, as the guns fall silent, even if temporarily, we ask, what comes next for Yemen? Will this fragile peace spark real change? Or is it just another chapter in a long and bitter saga? Only time will tell. But in the rubble of war, sometimes even a whisper of peace can sound like thunder. This has been Fix African News Network. If you found this story meaningful, please subscribe, like, and share, and join us next time as we continue to explore the untold stories shaping our world.